The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for May 10th, 2022 is now in session. First on the agenda is Councilmember Whitaker will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Let us pray. Dear Father, as we come together this evening to discuss the business of the city of Schertz, I pray you would guide our conversations and keep us mindful of the people we serve. We are blessed to live in a community with so many resources and opportunities, and yet even in Schertz we are starting to feel the pinch of inflation and a struggling economy. Help us to be good stewards of our residents' money, help us to use our resources wisely, and help us to always work towards building a stronger community where people come first. Father, look after our employees and staff, from our Public Works Department to the Police Department to Parks and Rec and everyone in between. Keep each employee safe and help them feel more like a member of our family. Thank you for those employees who have been here 5, 10, even 20 plus years. Thank you for their commitment to our community, and bless them and their families in the months and years to come. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Councilmember Whitaker. All right, first we have a couple of recognitions. Our city manager, Dr. Brown, will present the following employee pins for years of service. Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Isn't it great to see such a great crowd here, and all of our employees and our public safety and everything? Yeah, absolutely. So awesome to see you all here tonight. Thank you for being with us. So it is my pleasure to present 4 of our service awards. Maybe I just turn around this way. And these are to 4 of our long-term employees, and it's always a great honor to be able to do that. And we have 4 tonight. So we have 2 20-year and 2 25-year service pins to give out. So that's really awesome commitment and dedication to our city and to their co-workers and fellow employees. It's really great. So first off will be Joe Villarreal. Joe, come on up here. Do you think you're going to have half the city out here tonight with you, Kelly?
Trying.
Joe is an outstanding employee for the city of Schertz. Just a little bit about his background. He's our facilities assistant manager in the facilities services division, and he has held that position since 2021. He does have 20 years of service with the city of Schertz. What's great about Joe is that he worked his way up the ranks, and he started as a custodian in 2001. And worked his way up from there. He became a facilities maintenance foreman in 2007, and in 2012 promoted to facilities services supervisor. In his current job, it involves coordination of all the maintenance of all of our buildings, all of our facilities, janitorial, HVAC, plumbing, and pest control. So he has a lot of facilities and a big job. And in his spare time, he finds time to be part of our Employee Appreciation Committee. And for those of us that work here in the city of Schertz, it's a very important committee. They plan all of our parties. They're the party committee, and they're the ones that do a great job with all of our morale events. And so that committee really does a fantastic job for us. Joe was born in San Antonio, raised in Universal City. He attended SCU CISD schools and graduated from Samuel Clemens in 1994. There you go. That's why I paused. He's married with 2 daughters, Isabella and Sophia, and he says he loves to eat barbecue in Lockhart and go to the beach. So do you have family here? Is this your family?
Yes.
You want to introduce them?
I have my father here,
All right.
my mother, my oldest, Isabella, my wife, Lisa.
Lisa.
My youngest is Sophia.
I'm glad you got that right, Joe.
My mother-in-law as well, and my father-in-law as well.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's great to have you here. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the City of Schertz, I present Joe with his 20-year service pin. Congratulations.
I'll make it quick because I know a lot of y'all want to go home early. I just want to thank my family, my kids, my wife, for all their support and patience throughout the years. My parents, my in-laws, for being there for me. A lot of the past management staff, current management staff, I thank them for all their guidance, and all my coworkers in the Public Works Department.
I really like the cool Public Works shirts, so Suzanne, congratulations. Hey, y'all look very sharp tonight. All right, next for 20 years of service, Melissa Jullhorn. Come on up, Melissa. So it's definitely an honor for me to be able to present Melissa with her 20-year service pin. She does a great job leading our library. Of course, she is our library director, and she leads and manages all functions of our library. That includes programming, acquisition of materials, supervising 21 staff members, and of course the budget. She began serving here as the children's librarian in 2002 when the library was in the senior center. She became the library manager in 2007, assistant library director in 2012, and finally the director since 2014, so 8 years as our director. She worked prior to coming to Schertz, she worked at the Cedar Park Library, and she was also a movie theater manager, which I find interesting. She attended Canyon High School in New Braunfels and graduated magna cum laude from Texas Lutheran University. She received her Master of Library Science from UT at Austin in 1992. So she's very highly qualified and highly educated to be our library director, and we definitely are fortunate to have her, and our library has really prospered. It's an award-winning library and, of course, a critical part of our entire community. Her parents are Ray and Yvonne Harlos, and Yvonne is with us tonight. Thank you, Yvonne. So glad to have you here. And she has one daughter, Emily, who is here also. And Emily lives and works in San Antonio. She also has 4 grown stepchildren, 6 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild, which I did not know. I had the opportunity to introduce Melissa at our staff retreat, our staff budget retreat, and we got to know each other a little better. As part of that process, we introduced each other to the staff, and what I found out is that Melissa has a real creative streak in her. She's a very creative person. And in fact, she's an avid collector of Barbie dolls, and her collection ranges from 1959 to the 1970s. So she has a huge collection of Barbie dolls. And she also loves creating miniature clothes and accessories for her Barbie dolls. I can't, and she showed me one. I just don't know how she did it. I mean, you know, my hands just don't do that. It was incredible. So very well done, and she is a very creative person. She has 2 golden retrievers, and she loves to read, but she wants you to know that she does not get to sit around all day and read at work. So she has other duties to do. So if that's the image you have of librarians, I'm going to stop that image right now. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to award Melissa Jullhorn her 20-year service pin.
Try to keep it as short as Joe did, but I just want everybody to know that libraries are magical, wondrous places, and my experience working at our library has been terrific. I feel very honored to be, to have watched our little bitty library grow into the community resource that it is now. So I feel very honored to do that, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to have shepherded it from that little building over there to the building that we're in now, and this great staff and stuff that we have now. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
All right, now we move to public safety. Todd Kaiser, come on up. We're going to award our 25-year pins here. This is awesome. Once again, it's great to have all the teammates here. That's just so incredible that you all would turn out for that. So, Todd, congratulations, great work. So a little bit about Todd. He has been with us for 25 years, and like many of our folks in EMS and in the fire department, he started as a volunteer in July of 1996. He tells me that EMS was mostly volunteers then, and then he came on as a full-time paramedic in October of 1996. Todd was born in Fredericksburg and moved to San Antonio. He attended MacArthur High School. He played football and baseball, and he also raced motocross in high school. So now, Todd, I've never known anybody that did motocross that wasn't injured, so were you?
Well, I have plenty of
There you go. Plenty of injuries with motocross. But it is exciting, I guess.
It is.
There you go. He got his EMT at San Antonio College. He started working for a private ambulance service at the beginning of his career. He attended paramedic training in 1994 at San Antonio College also. He's been married to his wife, Tracy, for 21 years, and they have 4 children, Courtney, Lindsay, Trent, and Trevor, and 3 grandchildren in Dallas. Now, do you have your family here? So there's Tracy.
And then I have tall and taller.
Tall and taller. Is that Trent and Trevor?
Yes.
And your father-in-law, who's also Bud, a member of our, longtime member of our EMS department. So
Begin his 26th.
there you go. So awesome. Awesome to have you here. Awesome to have your family. Your family is a part of the Schertz family for sure. Thank you all for your service. He's following in your footsteps. Well, there you go. Good choice. He says his family has a ranch in 3 Rivers, and he works there unless it's too hot. So I get that. But he does like to hunt and fish and still rides his motorcycle to work when he can. So, Todd, thank you so much for your service, 25 years. You're dedicated to our city and shows a great commitment to us, and you're a very valuable asset and resource for the community of Schertz. So, congratulations.
Keep this short and sweet. Everyone have a good night. No, it's been a journey, definitely. I've had a lot of fun. I've worked with some awesome people here on the fire side, EMS side. I've seen a lot of faces, seen a lot of kids growing up now, still working here. And it's just been a wonderful journey. I want to just thank my wife and my boys for, you know, hanging in there. I've been working a lot of hours and long days, long nights, and haven't been there for them the whole time, but they know I'm thinking of them all the time, and they've supported me. My father-in-law, you know, he's there right behind me. He's having a lot of fun doing this. But no, I want to thank the city. You know, they've been wonderful to me, and I can't complain about it, and I still love doing what I'm doing. That's it.
Finally, we have John Perry, Battalion Chief John Perry. So John also started as a volunteer. He was a volunteer firefighter in 1994. He obtained his EMT and his firefighter designation in 1995, and he began full-time service with Schertz as a firefighter in 1997. Again, as we've seen tonight, he promoted steadily up the ranks, first to lieutenant in 2001, then he moved to the fire marshal's office in 2009. He also received the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement in 2010. He still maintains that. He served as deputy fire marshal for 5 years as lieutenant and promoted to captain, and then finally promoted to battalion chief for the B shift, and he's been in that position for the last 3.5 years, so steadily up the ranks for John. He was born in Würzburg, Germany, to an Army family, and like many of us, he eventually found his way to Schertz, and he also graduated from Clemens High School. Okay, that's, you know, doing the best I can here. So he's been married to Alexa for 24 years, and he has one son, Xander, who is 21. He says he enjoys many things in life, too many to list. Among his hobbies are leathercraft and speaker building. He also has a great love for the outdoors and hunting and fishing. And John Perry has been a critical member of our fire department for so many years. He's really a tremendous asset to us. Just all the corporate knowledge that he has, you do a great job for us, and we really appreciate all that you do. So it's my pleasure, John, to present you with your 25-year service pin.
I'll keep it short and sweet as possible. I looked around the room and saw a lot more folks coming in, lots of familiar faces, lots of new faces to me. You know, in 25 years, I've been blessed with a lot of mentors, a lot of folks that went before me. I'm just happy to do my part where I can to you know, continue that tradition and continue to make Schertz Fire Department one of the premier fire departments in our area. It truly is an honor every day to put the uniform on that I get to put it on, and I don't take that for granted. I look forward to doing it at least a couple more times. Thank y'all.
All right, great job to everyone. Thank you all. And now we're going to do some proclamations, and so that's awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. You know, as I look around the room, first of all, I didn't know Barbie was as old as I am, but I look around the room and I did notice Joe's T-shirt, First Responders. You know, our city is a first responder, regardless of what the situation is. You know, we respond to our residents' needs, whether it's a book report that it's an emergency they got to get done before their final grades are in, or a pipe busting. You know, it's incredible that, you know, our staff is able to provide for our community and our residents, and the support that I see here from each one of you supporting your coworker. That is very impressive, and I thank you all for coming here and taking part of this ceremony. All right, we'll move on to presentations. We have a couple of proclamations, and I'll go down here.
Mayor, there's a presentation from Anna.
All right, we do have a special introduction from Miss Anna Kraft. We have the Citizens Police Academy graduates.
Good evening, Council, City Management, citizens of Schertz. I am Officer Kraft, the Schertz Police Department. I'm also the Special Projects Officer / Community Relations Officer. One of our biggest programs that a lot of people inquire us about is our Citizens Police Academy. This year, I had 8 people from our community decide to come and learn a little bit more about the police department. 3 of them are here today. Miss Lindsay, say hi. Mr. Darrell. Mr. Darrell. And Miss Myra. Some of the things that they got to learn about was our chain of command, how we function at the police department. They also learned about LiDAR and radar, which I think they had a little bit more fun playing on the parkway, measuring the speed of our cars passing by. I had to remind them that it was 9 o'clock, it was time to go home, because they wanted to stay out there longer. They also got to meet our K-9 Medor and his handler. They met our school resource officers, our dispatchers. We were talked about mental health and crisis intervention, traffic laws, our penal code laws, and all of our officers' favorite, CCP, or Criminal Code of Procedures. So the list goes on. These 3 that are here with me and the fellow ones that could not make it, they have been superb, and I wanted to introduce them to you. They graduate this Thursday. They have dedicated 10 Thursdays to come join us. And I know there's several in the crowd that are also alumni. And I want to say thank y'all for making this program grow. And yes, you and your cup that you love. So thank y'all, and thank you for the opportunity to let me introduce them to you.
All right, now we have several proclamations. Today we have 6 proclamations that we're reading today, and that's quite a bit of reading, so I went ahead and delegated some of the work. So first we have a proclamation for the International Firefighters Day, and Councilmember Hayward will read the proclamation. But if I can please have Chief Rogers, is he here? He can, and the rest of the team, come on up here.
The whole gang. Ready? So normally I give the love to the police department, but today I get to give my love to the fire department. So I'm excited. International Firefighter Day. Whereas International Firefighter Day is observed each year on May 4th to honor and remember the past firefighters who have lost their lives while serving their communities, to express gratitude to those that have served in the line of work, and to show support and appreciation for those who presently serve. And whereas regardless of the language a firefighter speaks or the country in which he or she works and resides, all firefighters fight against the same enemy, fire. And whereas firefighters follow a long line of traditions and honor that inspires them to help colleagues, neighbors, strangers alike. And whereas the City of Schertz Fire Department responded to 4,621 calls for the service in 2021, Schertz Fire Department provided mutual aid assistance to the cities of Live Oak, Cibolo, Selma, Converse, Bracken, New Braunfels, Seguin, Universal City, Randolph Air Force Base, St. Hedwig, Marion, and New Berlin. And whereas at a moment's notice, firefighters are quick to respond to uncertain situations, mitigate danger, and combat the threat of destructive fire in order to protect individuals, families, and the economic being of our community. And whereas the demands of the firefighter are accompanied by both personal and physical tolls that a that all firefighters not only accept while risking their lives to protect the lives of others, and now therefore be it resolved for the Mayor of Ralph Gutierrez of the City of Schertz proclaim International Firefighter Day, May 4th, 2022, and will urge all citizens to support and appreciate the men and women of the City of Schertz Fire Department who protect our lives and property by remembering past firefighters who dedicated their lives to preserve our safety.
Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. So we just, again, appreciate the recognition tonight, and we've got a great team here that takes care of our awesome city, and hopefully you don't have to see them too often, but when you do, we hope everything is high-quality customer service, and they're treating everybody well, and we notice from the comments that we get that they do. So we just appreciate all the hard work that our crews bring, and appreciate serving the citizens of Schertz. Can I get in front of you?
You know, Councilmember Hayward mentioned all the different cities that they support. But we forgot about the national level that you provided assistance with the fires in California and Hurricane Harvey. I mean, I couldn't be any more proud of you for all the work that you do, not only in the local area, but across our nation too. Thank you so much. All right, we'll go on. We have another proclamation. Next one is the Proclamation for Economic Development Week, and Councilmember Brown will be reading the proclamation. If I can have the Economic Development staff here.
Good evening. City of Schertz Proclamation Economic Development Week, May 9th through May 13th, 2022. Whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurism in order to help establish the next generation of new businesses, which is the hallmark of the American economy. And whereas the City of Schertz has a rich history of mayors, city councils, boards and commissions, city staff, chambers of commerce, public-private partners, and residents who work together to promote economic development. And whereas in 1998, with voter approval, the City of Schertz Economic Development Corporation was established to lead the city's efforts to grow our economy in accordance with the provisions of the Development Corporation Act of 1979. And whereas in this spirit of teamwork, the SEDC and the City of Schertz work in unity to grow our local economy through the attraction and retention of primary jobs, providing infrastructure to attract new businesses, and supporting career training. And whereas over the past 24 years, the City of Schertz and the SEDC have partnered to bring about multiple projects that have benefited Schertz residents by leveraging incentive tools such as the construction of infrastructure, tax abatements, reimbursements, grants, and loans. And whereas, as the economic development efforts by this community have helped both small and large companies make significant capital investments within our city and create jobs for our residents. Whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and federal governments, public-private partnerships, chambers of commerce, universities, and a variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their region. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, and the City of Schertz City Council recognizes the week of May 9th through May 13th, 2022 as Economic Development Week, and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports expanding career opportunities and making lives better.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Bettis. I'm the director of the Schertz Economic Development Corporation. I'm here with my deputy director, Holly Mollish. I really want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the city, the policymakers, the public, the team members that make up the city government, leadership. We're extremely proud to be working in this community. You know, in the last year and a half, we've had 3 Fortune 500 companies expand in our community, and over 2 million square feet of speculative development announced for our community. So tremendous progress being made, and we're just excited and really taking this opportunity to say thank you for the partnership going forward.
Our economic development team has been pretty busy the past year. I mean, things are booming around this area, and all the work that's being done to get, you know, not only jobs, but also it helps our residents basically reduce the burden of taxes on our residents. Thank you so much, Adrian, for everything that you do. Appreciate it. All right, our next proclamation is the National Police Week, and Councilmember Whitaker will be reading that proclamation. If I can have the members of the police department and come join me.
City of Schertz Proclamation, National Police Memorial Day, May 15th, 2022, National Police Week, May 15th through the 21st, 2022. Whereas the members of the City of Schertz Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Schertz and provide a vital public service. And whereas the City of Schertz Police Department consists of 59 sworn officers, 8 civilian staff, 16 telecommunicators, and 13 crossing guards. And whereas the City of Schertz Police Department responded to approximately 30,288 service calls last year. And whereas the City of Schertz Police Department hosts 15 community events throughout the year, which include Breakfast with the Blue, Community Car Seat Check, Citizens Police Academy, Junior Police Academy, community safety presentations to the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, daycares, etc. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, calls upon all citizens of the City of Schertz to observe May 15th, 2022 as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, to honor those officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. He further calls upon all citizens of Schertz and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th to May 21st, 2022 as National Police Week 2022, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our citizens may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens.
Thank you. You tell 30,000 calls in a year. I tell you, the staff here does such a wonderful job, and it's not just the officers on the street, but it's the support staff behind the scenes that also helps out. We'd like to thank the mayor, our council, and our city management, and especially the community for their continued support. So thank you.
one of the main reasons why people want to move over to Schertz is safety and security. And our police department provides that to our residents and the surrounding community. Thanks again for all your support. Our next proclamation is National EMS Week. Councilmember Davis will read the proclamation. If I can have the EMS group, please come join me.
National EMS Week, May 15th through the 21st of 2022. Whereas the 2022 EMS Week theme is EMS, Rising to the Challenge. And whereas this theme is particularly meaningful now to remind people that every day we are faced with so many new challenges in our lives, and yet we still rise above them all and continue to respond, support, and care for the needs of our communities. And whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, first responders, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating an Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, hereby commend and congratulate the Schertz Emergency Medical Services for their valuable contribution, outstanding dedication, and pre-hospital medical care to the City of Schertz and surrounding communities in the area. Hereby join the United States of America and the state of Texas designating May 15th through the 21st of 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme Rising to the Challenge.
Mayor, Council, I do want to thank you guys for your support over the year. And of course, to my staff, the entire EMS department, their hard work makes my job very easy. Now, normally I'm pretty selfish when it comes to EMS week. That's our week. But I am honored to share that with our brothers and sisters in blue, and then also our public works department. Suzanne, without you guys and your whole department, we couldn't do our job, so thank you.
Taller than this thing.
Should. I'm going to stand next to you, Louis. It makes me look taller.
Once again, saving a life, what else can you say when it comes down to that? There's no greater gift than to provide life for someone that's or an emergency, responding to emergency. And thank you to our EMS crew. And that's why you are very well respected around the area. Even Randolph Air Force Base is so glad to be part of our servicing area. All right, next we have the National Public Works Week, and Councilmember Dollar will read the proclamation. If I can have the Public Works team come on up. Come on, guys.
National Public Works Week, May 15th through May 21st, 2022. Ready and resilient. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Schertz, Texas. And whereas public works professionals act as first responders who respond at a moment's notice during times of emergencies, natural disasters, and restoration and recovery incidents. And whereas this infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Schertz to gain knowledge, engage in an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and its programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association, be it now, therefore be it resolved, Ralph Gutierrez, the Mayor of Schertz, does hereby designate the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week. We urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions that they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, City Management. Wow. I mean, Public Works, this is a team we call Public Works. They are a professional group of people who answer any call, any day, any hour, under any circumstances. And those circumstances are often circumstances that most wouldn't leave their homes. But they don't do it for themselves. They do it for others to provide Schertz with the quality of life and the services they've come to expect and deserve. As their public director, I am impressed every day by their humility, by their dedication, and most of all, their strength to endure. I'm very proud of Public Works, and I'm even more thankful that they allow me to be part of their team. So thank you.
I'll go right here. I'm right here. The cheese.
No, during the proclamation, Councilmember Dalla mentioned one word: resilience. Everything is great when there's no problems, but that doesn't happen. I mean, there's always something that happens. And resiliency is how quickly can we get back to normal? How quickly can we get that fixed? And Public Works responds to that, to try to get that person, whatever the situation might be, back to a normal state. And it could be, like they said, in the early morning or late nights, or even in the cold winter freeze. It happens, and these guys do it. Thank you so much. We have another proclamation, and this is Municipal Clerks Week. If I can, please, Brenda and Sheila, please come join me. The City of Schertz Proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week, May 1st through May 7th, 2022. Whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. Whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks is the oldest among public servants. Whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks provide the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of governments at other levels. Whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas professional municipal clerks serve as information centers on functions of local governments and communities. Whereas professional municipal clerks continue to strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerks through the participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings at the state, Providence, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerks. Now, therefore, let it be resolved, I, Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor, City of Schertz, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And I'm very honored to have our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, and our Deputy City Secretary, Sheila Edmondson, who provide the council and the mayor's office with all the support, and I appreciate it so much. Ms. Brenda, mic's yours.
Well, let me say, I want to thank the mayor, council, and all our city staff, the city attorney, but most importantly, I want to thank the community. I get to work with every one of you that's along the wall. It is my honor. I try to strive to do the best that I can every day. As a municipal clerk, we play a strong role in overseeing and maintaining accurate records, which includes agendas, minutes, the wonderful ordinances of the laws that council makes, resolutions and proclamations and legal documents, so that they are available to the public with easy access. We have a broad-based but specialized knowledge to complete our duties. We continue our education, staying up on the recent legislative changes that affect our city. We are very proud and passionate of the cities that we serve and only want their successes as they grow and thrive. We are that little cog that keeps things moving. I am honored and thank you for this opportunity to serve you, this outstanding community. Schertz is #1 and is my home. Thank you.
Once again, Britta and Sheila, thank you so much. I know I keep you all very busy, especially the chocolate. She knows I'm a chocoholic, and she brings in those Kit Kats because she knows sometimes I can't function without some sugar. Thank you very much.
Commercial break, Mayor.
Okay, we'll continue with announcements of upcoming events. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, Wednesday, May 11th, they're going to have the groundbreaking ceremony for the I-35 Next Central project. That's going to be at 10:30 a.m. It'll be in the Santikos Galaxy parking lot, 2938 Northeast Loop 410 in San Antonio. On Saturday, May 14th, will be a nature discovery series, What's Buzzing and Blooming, from 10 to 11. That will be in Crescent Bend Nature Park. Tuesday, May 17th, will be the police memorial ceremony from 6:30 to 7:30. It'll be at the Santikos Theater, 18124 I-35 North. Saturday, May 21st, is going to be the Cibolo Crossing Stampede 5K Run and Barbecue Cook-Off. It'll take place from 7:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. in the Santikos parking lot. Also the same day is the Live Oak Armed Forces Day Parade. Staging is at 9 a.m. The parade begins at 10 a.m. and that's at 8001 Shin Oak Drive in Live Oak. We'll be back here on Tuesday, May 24th for our next regularly scheduled City Council meeting at 6 p.m. And then finally, just a heads up to put on your calendar, Monday through Friday, June 6th through the 10th is going to be the Junior High Fire Academy and the High School Fire Academy from 8 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday of those days at Fire Station 1. Breakfast will be prepared by the firefighters and served to the cadets on the morning of June 6th at 8 a.m. And there will also be a graduation ceremony at noon on that Friday, with certificates being handed out and pizza and cake being served. And Mayor and Council is welcome to attend any or all of those, or just to pop in during any of those times to see the activities going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Okay, announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown.
I have one tonight, and Brenda's going to put a photo up here. So today I had the opportunity to present two city manager coins to April Tolman and Jared Montney, and what that's a picture of is our new salsa garden at the library. And I thought this was a really inventive project that April and Jared did together. They worked on this jointly, and basically they had a session where they read the book, The Salsa Garden. April read to 50 children. And then when they were done, they actually planted a salsa garden, and Jared provided all the vegetables. So behind them, you see tomatoes and peppers and cilantro and basil and everything else that goes into salsa. So just a great program, and I think they're trying to plant that garden and keep it going, and so maybe they'll make salsa when it's all done. So I thought it was a great program.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brown. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I don't have any, so we'll move on. Next on the agenda is the hearing the residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. Mayor Pro Tem, please call first speaker.
We have two individuals tonight. First one is Mr. Daniel Jameson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Dan Jameson, 1048 Richmond Drive, Schertz. And my topic really addressed to James and Charles, and that is the Main Street project about resurfacing Main Street. The potholes need to be needs to be fixed, and they're the potholes that was caused by the potholes. So somehow, some way, in the planning of fixing that, you know, the patchwork needs to be patched up somehow. You know, I'm sure the fire department and police department, you know, if you've been down Main Street, if you dodge one pothole, you're going to hit 15 small ones. And if you dodge the 15, you're going to hit the one big one. So it's somewhere between Schertz Parkway and Main Street, First Street, whatever it's called. I don't remember. It's been so long. But, you know, I'm thinking, you know, if we broke it down into sections, little bits at a time, it may ease the traffic a little bit and help the business owners along the Main Street, and also help the city in growing that way also. And that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
And we have Mr. Glenn Outlaw.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. My name is Glenn Outlaw. I live at 3729 Forsyth Park. As the current chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I just wanted to share a few comments with you. I was in the audience last week when you discussed the proposed ordinance to basically redo the appointment and reappointment process. My experience, I'm coming up now, this 5.5 years. I was appointed midterm, so about 5.5 years on P&Z. And as the chairman, I've really only had two problems with the system. Number one was finding people that wanted to serve, and number two was actually conducting interviews. So I'm a little bit befuddled about the sudden need to redo a system that seems to have been serving us fairly well all these years. But that said, I wanted to comment. Last week, I think council had a very good discussion about the proposed ordinance. A lot of good points were made, and a lot of good ideas were shared. I think it's a great thing that you want to involve the chairpersons from the various committees in the interview. I think that's a great step. No one really knows how an applicant or a reappointment is going to fit with the committee better than that committee chairman. I do have some concerns, though, with some of the other things. The idea that we should replace somebody on a committee or a council just because they've been there for a while and we have somebody else that wants to be there. I'm not sure of the wisdom of that move. I can't speak for a lot of the committees. I served on TSAC for a while. I'm also, as a subject matter expert, I'm a member of the Building and Standards Commission. But I can tell you for P&Z, there's a learning curve. And it takes a while for a new member to get up to speed and really understand what we're doing, get a good grasp of the city Unified Development Code, our procedures. And so to just arbitrarily replace somebody so somebody else can have a new chance, we lose all of that experience and all of that knowledge. My other concern deals with being able to schedule these interviews. And I'll give you the problem I had. I'm a member of the interview committee, and the mayor called. He wanted to have the discussion about the system. They scheduled that meeting 3 times before they found a date where I guess enough people could show up. The first 2 times I was available. The third time I was not. That was my 52nd wedding anniversary, and we had dinner reservations, and there was no way I was going to miss that to come to the committee meeting. And again, if you bear with me for just a few seconds, so my concern is availability of people. If we're going to have to interview people to reappoint them, how are we going to work with their schedule? I'd hate to see somebody fall by the wayside just because our 2 calendars couldn't agree. And then the only other question I have is, where you're separating, basically you've separated the boards and commissions into 3 groups, which would imply that the committee is going to meet at least 3 times for appointments and reappointments. And I just wonder, in between, when we have vacancies, are they going to have to wait for those 3 opportunities, or will the interview committee meet in between those in order to fill vacancies? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Outlaw. I think some of these concerns will be addressed during our discussion item. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda items. These are self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. They require no separate action unless requested by council. Item number 1, the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on April 26, 2022, and our regular meeting of May 3rd, 2022. Item number 2, consideration or action regarding the resignation and appointment to various boards, commissions, and committees. Number 1 was the resignation of Mrs. Tyler Hisley from the Transportation Safety Advisory Commission. And number 2 was the resignation of Mr. Daniel Bourgeois from the Building and Standards Commission and the Historical Preservation Committee. Item number 3, resolution number 22R47. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing expenditures not to exceed $398,200 with Girard Electric for the installation of generators and related electrical upgrades at the Nacogdoches and Morning Drive water facility. Council, do any of these need to be removed for separate action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items? Okay.
Second.
We have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3 by Councilmember Hayward, and second by Councilmember Scagliola, or Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we're first going to move on to item number 5. I think that would, it's much quicker action needed on this one. So item number 5 is ordinance number 22T21. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget to landscape the Cibolo Valley Drive mediums, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is our first reading. Mr. James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a budget adjustment as the first step. In 2 weeks, when you have your next meeting, what you'll see is, assuming you approve this tonight, the second reading of this item, and then the contract to have the median within Cibolo Valley Drive from Old Wiederstein to the frontage road landscaped going forward. The cost of it is just over $88,000. It's an eligible expense from our roadway impact fees, so the budget adjustment is to allocate the expenditure from that account.
Thank you, Mr. James. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. No comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 22T21?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Brown. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move back to number 4, item number 4. Ordinance number 22M20. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, setting expiration dates for the end of terms of volunteer members of the city boards, commissions, and committees, and requiring the city board volunteer members to take part in an interview process to be appointed by the reappointment to a city board, repealing all ordinances or resolutions or parts of ordinances or resolutions in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is our first reading, and I think the way we're going to tackle this issue is we're going to address one issue at a time and try to get a consensus before we move to this next issue. So let's go ahead and address the first portion of this ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council staff. Thank you. The first, like Mayor Gutierrez said, there would be 4 parts. The first part to discuss would be Exhibit A, which was the schedule of changing the boards and commissions to having those interviews 3 times a year. So the schedule didn't change from last week, so we still put it in your agenda packet. And at this point, was there any discussion on that?
Okay, thank you. So the first portion of this ordinance is regarding the scheduling of the appointments and breaking the committees into 3 different time periods. Council, any comments on this one? Councilmember Hayward.
Okay, my concern is, or I know with breaking it down, each group will have to have interviews. And if we're having a hard time, so basically what they're saying is like this first one is going to be like, my understanding, it's like 16 positions. It could be 16 people, it could be 32 people, and then trying to schedule that, so then that would end up being over 2 days, depending on how many people show up for that.
Yes, ma'am.
So my concern is if we're having a hard time meeting an interview schedule where everyone's schedule can meet, and the commitment from the interview committee and then getting the chairmans here, I'm wondering if that's going to be a difficult task. I like the idea of putting different boards and moving their dates of renewal or reappointment, because it makes it easier on city secretary staff as far as getting those notifications to people saying you need reappointment. So is that correct, that each one of them will have that, and then y'all will have to try to schedule it on a day when all of the interview committee can meet, and when y'all try to discuss the process, it took 3 times to do that?
Yes, ma'am. Each of those, if you just go back a little bit, the terms of the volunteer members is a 2-year term. And the way it's set up is that pretty much half of each board is up for 1 year and the following the next year, and it just continues. So if you look at those boards and the amount of folks who serve on the board, you can calculate half of them would be interviewed at that time frame. I do believe that Ms. Dennis looked over the first numbers for the first group, and it was approximately 16. Now, that would be those who would just be up for reappointment. That does not include the applications that could be brought into, sent into us, that we would also attach with that particular packet to have the interview committee consider.
So my concern again is setting that up. If it took them 3 different times, and then you're trying to set up a schedule for the interview committee plus however many people can come in, and then as Mr. Outlaw said, what if someone can't make any of those times? Do they just get overlooked because they couldn't make it because of the time that was scheduled? So that is kind of one of my concerns going forward, but I do like the 3 different dates of reappointment.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand the concerns, having been on the interview committee since I got on council back in 2016. I don't recall the city secretary's office in any of that time mentioning that they had a hard time scheduling people for any of these meetings. There's always the potential that somebody can't make a particular meeting. Commissioner Outlaw's comments earlier were about a meeting for the committee to talk about how the committee operates, not the interview for other people. And we've had a lot of flexibility in our meetings with adjusting times and even meeting more than once to meet with somebody who's interested in being on a board. I really don't see the problem. As a matter of fact, the only potential problem we get out of this is, and we haven't had a problem because the general mindset has been since before I got elected to council. I actually started out on the Parks Board and the TSAC back in '08. And I don't see a problem because our general process was if somebody was on a board and they wanted to stay on the board, they just informed the city secretary that they would like to be reappointed. And the general consensus in the community in the city was we reappoint that person to the board. In my entire time on boards and commissions and on council, I don't ever recall getting a call from the city secretary or a board or a commission or city management saying, hey, we've got a problem with this person on the board and we need to reevaluate them and maybe not reappoint them. It's been, if you're on a board and you want to stay on a board, you stay on a board. The only big change I see coming out of this is the only value I see out of this is if we really want to reevaluate board members, and we've never had 16, I don't think, people for an interview panel when we've had openings on boards and commissions. We will if we're going to change the standard, and the standard becomes everybody who's due for a reappointment has to get reevaluated or re-interviewed, as well as anybody who puts in an application for a potential seat. Because that's what we're creating here. We're not just, like, for example, we just had a resignation from Building and Standards. So there's an opening on Building and Standards. but you have a potential for multiple openings if you've got 2 or 3 people that are due to term out and have to reapply. So we've created a situation where instead of trying to fill an opening, we're saying that we will need to reevaluate people to fill 2 or 3 openings. And you're doing that for every single one of the boards that we have in a community. So the only value for me is if that's the intent of council, where we want everybody to reapply and explain why they'd like to stay on a board, then the only thing that makes sense to me is to split up the number of sessions and stagger the terms into 3 or 4 groupings, because again, by implementing this vision of making people revalidate their positions or reapply for their positions, we are now creating more workload for both the interview committee and the city secretary's office. And we're creating more of a scheduling nightmare, because in the past, the city secretary would say, okay, if we have 3 people on the Parks Board that are due for their term is up, the city secretary, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Dennis, the city secretary would reach out and say, do you want to stay on the Parks Board? And if all 3 said yes, then there's no scheduling issue. There's no interview, there's nothing else.
Yes, and I did make them fill out another application as well, and that was provided to the interview committee.
Right, but there was no scheduling issue.
No, there was no scheduling of...
There's no additional workload for the committee. The most we would do is if there was a vacant position, then again, we interview a bunch of people, you know. Like I said before, the typical way this has worked in the past is the city secretary's office advertises that we're looking for members for boards and commissions. We've done it at the volunteer fair. We've done it half a dozen different ways. Folks apply when they know there's a vacancy. So for example, if there's a vacancy on planning and zoning, 5 people will apply for the 1 vacancy on planning and zoning. We interview all 5 people. Ultimately, the interview committee recommends one of the 5 for the opening. And during that interview process, we probably spend more time trying to figure out and talking to the applicants if we can find somebody that is interested in sitting on a different committee, because we only have 1 opening with 5 applicants for planning and zoning, and we've got 2 openings on TSAC and no applicants, and 3 openings on the library board and no applicants. So we actually spend more time talking to the people. And to be honest with you, I think we've been pretty successful on getting folks to come out of their comfort zone and try something new and try some of the other boards and commissions. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure there's a scheduling issue other than the fact that we might be creating one by now requiring everybody to revalidate their intentions to sit with or to stay on the board, coupled with now they have to sit for an interview as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, here's the thing with this first item, 1, 2, 3. I don't really have a problem with that. It seems like that will streamline the process. Let's divide it up into 3 different sections. I'm all for incremental improvements. When you get to the next section, though, I'll have my say.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Whitaker.
For Exhibit A, I think it makes more sense to break it up into 3 sections. It's a lot to, whether you're interviewing just the vacancies or everybody, I think it just makes sense. So on Exhibit A, I like it the way you've adjusted it.
Councilmember Dalla.
So yeah, I would agree with shifting the terms. Kind of puts us in a position where we're advertising year-round, so to speak, for boards and commissions, and like others have mentioned, that we can get an applicant for another board or commission that may not be up on that particular quarter, but we have a vacancy and it gives us an opportunity to interview and place that and fill that seat. As for the comment about scheduling and meetings, I think we've gotten very comfortable over the last couple of years with meeting on Zoom if necessary, so I don't see that being a big issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. No, I agree with them. I mean, if we didn't break it up this way, it was just, we're looking at about 50 to 60, maybe even 70 interviews. If we have to interview everyone, breaking it up, I think makes logical sense, is that you're interviewing just a portion and not the 9 different boards that we have available. So I think we do have a consensus that the interviews will be conducted on 3 different occasions for different boards. So
Mayor, just one thing. I don't see in this Exhibit A where we start talking about interviews yet. All we're doing is talking about expiration dates for individual terms.
No, and that's, yeah.
That's all. We're talking about the expiration date for the different boards and commissions. There is nothing in Exhibit A about interviewing yet.
No, we just talked about, why we're scheduling it, and basically not to fill in just one day of interviews. Scheduling one day of interviews for all the boards. That's my only intent to mention that. So I think we have a consensus to split up the schedule.
All right.
Okay, let's go. Next, Exhibit B, item number 1.
Okay, Exhibit B, basically there'd be 3 parts. So the first part of Exhibit B would be Part 2. As written in draft, the chair of the board and the volunteer member will be notified by the city secretary's office that the volunteer member's term is expiring in approximately 45 days, and if the volunteer member wants to be reappointed, they will need to submit an application to be reappointed to that board in which they choose to serve on.
Okay. Questions? Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola?
Yeah, Ms. Brenda, is that the way things are now? If an individual wants to be reappointed, they need to fill out the application?
Yes, if their term is expiring, I send them a notice that their term is expiring and that they'll need to fill another new application out. Yes, sir, and that's
Okay.
confirmation that they are wanting to stay on the board. Yes.
Okay, if that's the way things are done now, I have no problem with that.
the way they
That's
are.
all I have, sir.
Okay.
For item 1.
Any other comments on Exhibit B, item 1? I think we're okay with item 1. Let's go to item number 2.
Item number 2, Exhibit B. If there are new applicants from citizens wishing to serve, they will be interviewed by the interview committee at the same time frame the interviews for reappointment are to be scheduled.
Okay, council, questions? Councilmember Brown?
I still don't agree with the re-interview process for each board member. I think that's a... Yeah. That's number 2. Exhibit B, number 2. If there are new applications, they will be interviewed by the interview committee at the same time frame the interviews for reappointment are to be scheduled.
Okay, point of order for...
In our packet, under Exhibit B, we have a paragraph that's labeled 1, a second paragraph that's labeled 2, and a third paragraph that's labeled...
I apologize. Yes, sir. That should be...
So that should be 3, correct?
Correct, 3.
Okay.
Is discussing the interviewing all the potential...
So my point of order, as read by our city secretary, is we're only talking right now about 2, which is if it's a new application from a citizen wishing to serve, someone who's not currently on a board or commission, they will be interviewed by the interview committee at the same time frame. Well, that's the problem. Get that line in there with the reappointment.
So what I'm seeing that this says is, this is telling me the interview board is going to re-interview everyone plus those that have submitted new applications. That's what how I'm reading that. If that's not the intent, then let us know.
For the number 2, I was writing to the new applicants, stating that the new applicants from citizens wishing to serve, they would be interviewed by the interview committee at the same time frame the interviews for reappointment are to be scheduled. So the second portion could be stricken or rewritten but I was writing to the new applications. Now, if that's something you as council wants to put in a different direction, please let me know.
It almost sounds like 2 and 3 are similar.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, Councilmember Whitaker?
So if you, just talking about new applicants, maybe we can simplify it at this point. Do we want, let's say there's a board that's full and there's some, you know, what do you call it? Reappointments that are due, but they want to stay on the committee or board, and someone has applied for that board. I think something that hasn't been directly addressed is, can we interview that person? So regardless of whether the person wants to stay on or not and whether that person's going to be interviewed or not, are we giving new applicants an opportunity to at least be met? I don't know what the process has been in the past, but do they get to be interviewed even if the current member says, I want to stay on? Do we even let them get to the interview process, or do we say, I'm sorry, there's no vacancies, but we'll talk to you about other openings? So how is it operating at this time?
We do let the applicant apply, and then that's like Councilmember Davis said. Then we have discussions with them and find out that their interest, we know what they put down. They want to be on planning and zoning. Everybody wants to be on planning and zoning. But as the interview board speaks to this applicant, they found out that there's some other interests that are really better fit. For instance, when we interviewed somebody that wanted to be on planning and zoning, in speaking to that individual, they were better fit on the TSAC. And they were, in the interview committee, explained the process and what the TSAC committee does. So each new person during this process, when it was in May, and everybody was up in May, all new applicants were interviewed. Now, the ones that re-upped were not interviewed, but the information was provided to the interview committee along with, yes, they wanted to re-up, and here is their renewed application. All that was provided in a graft for the interview committee.
Okay, so very specifically, again, I wasn't on the board, so only the interview committee would know, but when the interview commenced, was the initial conversation, tell us about why you want to be on P&Z and how would you contribute to that, and you actually gave them an opportunity to engage in an interview about being on P&Z, or was the initial contact with them, thank you for applying for P&Z, there's no opening right now, let's talk about other options?
Councilmember Davis?
If the person applied for a board, like P&Z, and there was an opening on P&Z, the initial discussion out of the chute was always about that particular board.
How do you define an opening? So somebody is
The city secretary would give us a listing of all of our boards where we have an opening.
So either a
primary or an alternate.
So either a vacant seat currently because someone left previously, or someone is not renewing. That's what creates an opening. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes. So that's how I would like to address this item number 2, is how are we handling those new applicants? And I think it's relevant because because you could still consider someone for a board if the person who's on, I guess the difference is, what we're saying is, going back to, if someone wants to stay on a board, they stay on a board, and it's their decision only. And that's how it's going right now. And I see, and I'll just say, I'm the new guy here, so I really don't know most people on the committee. I don't really know the process, so I'm trying to learn the process. But I've also been listening to what's been happening, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, this whole conversation wouldn't be happening if there weren't problems somewhere on some boards. We had a mass exodus from one of our committees, and there's not as a council member who's responsible for filling these, if I have no idea what's going on, and that's not to make an assumption that there's bad things going on, but if there's not an opportunity to understand a little bit better about what's going on with a committee or commission or board, then this is all we're just hoping it all works out. And I feel like you're working behind the power curve. Now, I don't want to question every single person and their intentions and, like micromanage. I don't have time for that, and I know, nobody does. I'm just trying to find a better middle ground where we respect people's time and appreciate their volunteering, but also not get to a point where either we lose an entire committee or we have a committee that I was involved with, working with a subcommittee on and following meetings and such. And, there are members who are engaged and there are members who are, critically thinking about situations and ordinances that are coming forward. And then there's members that are not necessarily working, moving things forward. There have absolutely been examples of situations where it's not been the best fit that a person stay on a board. And I don't know, it's a hard thing to say. It's not the majority. It's not, it's a very small, but I don't think you can ignore that. And my opinion is that the change in process is to potentially catch some of those situations before they become problems affecting the outcome of those boards. And some of those boards have very significant impact within the city, and their decisions are final, and they don't come to us. So I think it's important. So all that to say, item number 2, the second paragraph here, I do think we need to make a decision on how we define an opening on a board, and there is a difference between an opening being the person already on the board left or vacated and now it's open, or someone is up for renewal, which creates an opening on a board that, to be quite honest, and I appreciate Commissioner Outlaw's point that you don't want to lose experience. I don't want to lose experience. There's a huge learning curve being on city council or any of those boards, I'm sure. And so that would not be a decision just to get fresh blood. I would say it's certainly valuable to have someone continue on. And that's why we discussed having the chairperson of that board or committee be present so we can understand, hey, this person's a great fit, everything's going great. I don't want to put a new person in there and lose that experience, and that's what we would share during that interview process or committee meeting. But I feel like it's arbitrary to just say, hey, anybody who's on, you want to stay on, nothing changes until you make a decision to move. And I don't think that's being responsible as a council, not having some kind of input and communication there during that renewal process. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think we need to define what an opening is. I would like to see opportunities given to people and a little bit more thought put into renewing people, not making it an automatic if they choose to. And I think it's we've already discussed putting it on the chairperson to say if this person, if there's a real problem, they need to go. Well, that's a lot of pressure on the chairperson to, what are you going to do? You're firing a volunteer, essentially. So I think the renewal process is a better time to evaluate what's going on a committee and make it a more positive experience going forward.
Okay, before we continue, were we addressing number 2 or number 3?
Yes, sir.
2 and 2, yeah.
It would be number 2, the first
Okay.
2. I apologize.
So I think the clarification on the first 2 is basically adding to it, and I think it would clarify it. If there are new applicants from citizens wishing to serve or fill a vacancy, I think we put that. That will allow us to fill in that vacancy at a different timetable. So if, let's say, for instance, planning and zoning went in through March and all of a sudden they have a vacancy, we can schedule that in September and fill that vacancy. And I think that will solve number 2. And we can go on to the second number 2, which is number 3. Is that, yes, well, Councilmember Brown.
Okay, well, just to address that, it's the fact that the second paragraph, whatever number you want to call it, it states in there that it be at the same time interviews for reappointment are to be scheduled. Okay, and I would I would prefer that we just drop that interviews for reappointment portion of it, because we're only looking for, this is the new folks.
Yeah, okay. So we'll put into fill in the vacancy and strike out
it would make
reappointments.
Sense, based on schedules and everything else, to put them all at the same time, if schedules allow, time allows, et cetera. Okay, which makes the third paragraph there, okay, is really what we're all discussing.
That's what we're good. Okay, so number 2 basically is that revision, and I just want to get a consensus from council. But before we go on, Councilmember Davis had.
Yeah, I just want to respond and clarify something for Councilwoman Whitaker. Back when we were talking about if someone applies for a board, do we interview and address that board with their desires first? That is typically what we have done. We have had people that have applied for a board position that has no vacancies, and they have been scheduled and came in for interviews. So we have had people come in with an application that says they want to serve on I'll get away from planning and zoning. That seems to be a complicated one. We've had people come in and say, I want to be on EDC, but there's no openings on EDC. So we've still interviewed them, and we've still asked them EDC questions. What is their background? What is their experience? Why do they want to be on EDC? We've gone through that whole drilling process. And then we said, unfortunately right now, we have no openings on the EDC, but we do have openings on the other boards, and we've asked them if they would consider something else. The second point I want to make is I'm not quite sure that the interview process would necessarily enlighten the interview committee to any potential problems that are existing on a board. For example, if we're interviewing new applicants or the reappointment process, if you send in John Doe to get re-interviewed, and we ask John Doe how it's going, I'm sure John Doe is going to say everything's peachy keen and I want to be back on Board A or Board B. I think there's some ways to address that. On the interview committee, we've got council members that are appointed to the interview committee, and we typically have the chairman of the EDC board and the Planning and Zoning Commission that are part of the interview process. And I mentioned the last time this was up, I think a better process might be having the current chair of the board in question as part of the interview process. So in other words, if we're interviewing someone for the library board, have the chairman of the library board be part of that process. I still have concerns to a point that it opens a door potential for someone who's elected the chair who doesn't get along with somebody that just disagrees with them is now influencing the interview panel that says, this person's been on here for the past 3 years, but they really shouldn't be there. Again, I think it's going to take us down a path of we're going to have to clarify why that's the case. I still don't think we have a good plan for if the chairman is up for renewal and we have to re-interview them. I mean, how do we get input on the performance of the chairman, and whether or not they should stay on the board, whether a chair or a regular position. And I'll put this out there. In the past, I think the way we got information on how well the boards were doing is we used to have council liaisons to all the boards. We had a council liaison. I mean, when you look at our additional duties right now, they're all gone. We have one to the Animal Advisory Board right now. We have one to the Housing Authority that I serve on. But all of our other boards and commissions, we've eliminated all those positions where we had I remember being back on Parks and Rec back in the day, and Jim Fowler, who sat in this seat, was the liaison, and he would attend all the Parks and Rec meetings as the city council representative and get input on what was going on with that particular board or commission. So, maybe if we want to, I'll throw it out there, an option might be that might be a pretty good idea of going back and adding the council liaison positions to all the boards. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, so I think we addressed number 2, and we're really on 2B. Yeah, the second 2. I think, well, let's finish number 2. I think number 2, 2A basically is just fill in a vacancy and take out the reappointment. So I think we're all in agreement that one is, will be okay. Number 3 is coming back to the complicated matter of, scheduling the reappointments. I think that option is still there. And Councilmember Whitaker mentioned some interesting points. If we don't interview, we'll never. We get into this perpetual thing that we keep doing the same thing over and over, and we never really fix the issues. But then Councilmember Davis brought up other interesting points about the chair. If the chair doesn't want someone on there, I think there's complications regardless of which way you go. The complications that we don't know exactly what's going on with these boards or how we can fix these boards and get new members in there, or the situation where a chair can actually not pleased with someone else, and it could be personal conflict or whatever it might be. That's always a situation. Having the liaison, that's going to be up to council. But Councilmember Brown. Mm-hmm. Yes, Councilmember Brown.
I started on that, and we got caught up in it, but I just want to go on to the reappointment portion of it. All right. The chairman of the committee and what Councilman Davis was talking about, we used to have the liaisons, as well as the staff person that's working that committee. All right, they're all key to identifying, issues that may develop out there. Again, I was president of the EDC board for 7 years, on the board for 9 years, and I think we had one person in that whole time that we basically asked not to renew because they were not a good fit. And they knew it too. I mean, they figured it out as well, okay? Which is part of that enlightenment, if you will. But we did, we always had turnover. There was always turnover. Maybe not when you wanted to be on a board, but we had the turnover on a regular basis. People move. People have changes in life. They can't do things like they did the last year. This idea that we're not allowing people to serve, again, what Councilman Davis said, I've been on the interview committees as well. You interview anybody that applies, and then you ask them, okay, I don't have a place on Committee A that you want to be on, but we do have other openings, and let's talk about those. Are you willing to serve? And if they're only willing to serve on Committee A, thank you very much. Your name is on the list. All right? But generally, they find out that there are other things out there, and generally, they find out that, oh, Parks and Recs is different from what I thought it was. And generally, they find out that planning and zoning is a lot different than what they thought it was, okay? And it does take a lot of time to be on that board. And economic development is not about going out and getting a restaurant, okay? Once people find out what these boards are about, they often say, I didn't know, and maybe I really do want to be on TSAC because I'm more worried about that stop sign in the neighborhood and making things right. So re-interviewing every person, I think, is going way too far. It's going to not just inconvenience, it's going to make the chairman, the board liaisons, the staff, everybody, and the board and committee members, if they feel like they have to reapply and be re-interviewed, you don't trust me? I'll just not reapply. Y'all can go find somebody else. and I'm afraid of that as well. So I think it's key that communication continues out there. Again, like I said, we don't have the city council liaisons anymore like we did for all of them. I think that's another discussion that we should probably have, but we do have staff that's involved in every single committee, all right? And I think we trust that they will talk to the city manager. The city manager will relay to the mayor and or council if there's something going on. That's generally the way command and control is supposed to work, all right? And if we aren't working like that, again, we have another communication problem. So that's my point on the interview process, so that we don't get bogged down into it.
Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, I told you about the hairs on the back of my neck last week. I got them trimmed, but still, this is causing a little bit of an issue with me, because I'm not a critical person. I'm really not, but I am a critical thinker. And there's just a whole bunch of things that just don't seem right. But let me accentuate the positive, because I got this enlightenment from both ends of the dais. I completely agree with Councilmember Davis. You know, we need that incremental improvements. Expiration dates are a really good idea. The current chair should be on that interview board. And I always thought that was pretty much how we designed it. Understand that sometimes it's harder to get a hold of some chairs than others. And then how are the chairs selected? Well, the chairs are selected by the board. And like I said, I've never heard of a chair going rogue, because they're pretty much selected by the board. So how do you get rid of a rogue chair? Well, quite frankly, one doesn't exist, to the best of my knowledge. So why are we trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist? I'm really, really concerned. Let me jump to my conclusion, okay? Because I could talk. Oh man, class is out for the semester, so I got at least a 3-hour speech in me about management and leadership. There's a difference between the two of them, but I'll save that for another day. I'll spare you. Let me just go to the conclusion here. Before we go down this path, I really strongly suggest we sit down with a workshop, because according to this interview committee meeting, they came to this kind of sort of consensus, but I'm worried about who's driving the bus on that particular consensus that was developed. I really worry about that. We ought to sit down with the committee chairs and perhaps the staff even. And let's come, if you think there's something broken with the interview process, let's go over it. You do not fix the problem by demotivating people, by implying that you don't trust them anymore and making them prove their worth. You don't do that. I really, really wonder about what is the catalyst for this action. What led to it? Because it seems to me to be a knee-jerk reaction to something that went wrong. And in typical management practices, when something goes wrong, what do? Well, you throw a process at it to fix it. I'm just wondering if this is a solution to a problem that does not exist. What's the objective? What is it we're trying to really accomplish here? Before we really go any further in this, hey, I'm an analyst, and like I said, I'm not teaching this semester. So if you want, I could probably answer a few questions for you. Like, hey, how many man-hours is going to be involved in scheduling all these things? Who's going to do the scheduling? When and where is it going to happen? How do you coordinate all that? What is the process, by the way, for the re-interviewing? What questions will be asked? How do you determine if a person is no longer a fit? Way too many unknowns in this. The process isn't broken. Let's not try to fix it. And going back, I'm really curious as to what the catalyst for this action is. What brought it up and why? Let's fix that problem if one exists. I don't expect that to happen into an open mic, though. So, Mayor, maybe I'll sit down with you sometime. We can discuss it. That's all I have.
Glad to discuss that with you. Councilmember Hayward.
First, let me start by saying, last week and this week, I thought this week would go faster. I feel like I'm going through that dimension, you know, of...
Can you get closer to the microphone? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm like, last week and then this week. This week, I thought it would go faster. I wasn't happy with last week. I thought this would go better because this is the interview committee that came up with the rules the first time. Then they sat here on the dais and got changed last time. So I feel like I'm going through that dimension of sight, sound, and mind, like the Twilight Zone, because I'm like, if it's not broke or we're doing this because the interview committee got together and decided they needed to change something. Maybe if they go back to the drawing board and we let this go and they go back to the drawing board, or I agree with Dr. Scagliola, a workshop, because trying to fix something and interviewing everybody and trying to figure out when you're going to advertise and reappointments and all that stuff is just, it's mind-boggling. It's confusing because last week we wanted one thing and we talked for 48 minutes to fix the things that they had already discussed in the interview committee. Then we get some of the interview committee wanting to change what they discussed. So maybe it's go back to the drawing board or leave what is already in place alone, and we can scrap this and move on and have a workshop so that maybe we can get forward. Then the other novel idea, I get the liaisons, but my thought process was, if I'm on the interview committee and I want to see what's going on, I'm just going to stop in one of the meetings to see how things are working out. Then talk to the chairman if there's a concern about a particular committee that you've heard on the street. Go to the committee, go to the meeting, the board meeting, the committee meeting. Then after the meeting, stick around and talk to the chair or talk to some of the members. That's an easy fix, and it doesn't take a lot of man hours and time to do that. It's just you going out there because you're part of the interview committee and you're doing research. It makes it simple and plain, and we don't have to go through this whole process, and hopefully we won't do this for another 48 minutes tonight.
Mayor, I have a question because, you know, the current ordinance that we have in place, the boards and commission members serve a 2-year term, and their terms end of May, okay? That is the current ordinance that we have on the books that has been approved. What we're trying to do here, we've got to do something tonight. If we're going to change the way we're going to interview, we're going to change the expiration dates of specific boards to different times, this is great. But we need to do that. But my biggest concern is we need to do something tonight to put that portion in place because everybody's under the current ordinance, their terms for 2022 is going to expire May 31st.
Okay. What I think we'll do is we will pass a portion of the ordinance. I think we have 1 and 2. Well, Exhibit A is, we have a consensus on that one. Exhibit B, item number 1, I think we have a consensus on that one. We're discussing the major portion of that, the other thing. But in all, I think Council, we are going to bring it up to a vote, especially because the expiration dates, and we have to do something. So Council will make sure that we make that point across when we take a vote. But Councilmember Dolly.
So there's been a lot of good points made. You know, last week I was supportive of the idea of interviewing everybody, and for the reason that, you know, without having everybody interviewed, that it's solely in the discretion of an individual whether or not they want to continue to serve or not. I think there's some place in the process where council needs to be able to say, hey, thank you for your service, we appreciate you, but we need to go in a different direction for any number of reasons, whether it's attendance or, you know, other things that may come up from time to time. But interviewing everybody is in order to have that discretion as to who stays or who doesn't stay. I'm feeling more and more that that's not the right way to go about doing this. I think there's a different way we can set up this process to where when it's obvious that, somebody needs to leave because they're not a good fit for that board or commission, that, we have the ability to do so, and not encumber the time of everybody else just because we want to interview everybody just to say, okay, this one person is the one that is actually the problem and not everybody else. And so Councilmember Davis's comment about the liaisons sounds, at first glance, sounds like an alternative way for us to be able to have a little bit more discretion about the continuing service of the volunteers. I certainly don't want to uninvite somebody from volunteering to serve just because of tenure. That, again, like Chairman Outlaw said, somebody that served 6, 8, 10 years on P&Z, has got a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of memory of things that we've done. Sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes it might stand in the way of thinking forward. But either way, those opinions and thoughts are valid and definitely need to be heard. And that's partly why we have the boards and commissions, is to get feedback from people that have different perspectives than us. I think there's a better way than just interviewing everybody else. I think we need to find that way. Interviewing everybody for the sake of trying to ferret out a couple of individuals that may or may not be a good fit continuing to go forward is not the right way to do that. I don't feel at this point.
Okay. Councilmember Whitaker.
I wanted to point out that what Brenda pointed out, that we do have to take some kind of action because of the deadline for the committee. So I would agree that at a minimum we need to vote to extend their time because we're not prepared to renew or fill positions and have interviews for any vacancies at this point. So that's one. Number two, I think it's important to clarify if we don't want to allow an opening because someone chooses not to step down, then there is no point for a renewal, interview for those people. That one has to be the other. The only purpose of interviewing everyone is if you are saying at the end of your term, it is optional whether or not you come back. And if that's optional, that means we could look at choices. If we are saying it is strictly up to the individual whether or not they want to continue, then there is no point in interviewing them at that point. So I agree. So I think the decision is, do we want to create an opening at a renewal period and make it more our decision whether that position is open or whether it's up to the individual? And it sounds to me like the consensus on the council is that to leave the system as it is, but I do think that it needs to be explained that that means there is no opening on that committee or board unless someone chooses to step down. So I just think that's an important clarification to make. And therefore, the next step would be, then what's the point of the renewal period in the first place? So if every 2 years you renew, then I would say, okay, we're telling each board or committee member, it's their commitment. I guess the point of that period is to say, you have committed to 2 years. Not that we can hold anybody to that, but again, the purpose, I like definitions. It makes me feel like everybody's on the same page. We can all agree to what the expectation is. So if that's the case, then the purpose of the renewal period is to say, you're a volunteer, thank you for your service, you've committed to 2 years, and we look forward to you working, and then at the end of the 2 years, would you like to continue? Yes, then you're committing to 2 more years. So it's the difference of the definition of that, of their term, that they're in control of that. If they want to renew, then there is no vacancy. But the third thing I wanted to ask, which again, everyone's skirting around the issue, is there was reasons that we started this conversation. It didn't come out of thin air. So are there numbers as to the current committees, what percentage of vacancies that we have on those committees at this point?
Well, for instance, the Board of Adjustments, there is 1 vacancy current. So we have 3 up for reappointment and 1 vacancy to fill. Library has 6 up for reappointment and 1 vacancy to fill. Planning and zoning has 4 up for renewal and 2 vacancies to fill, which is the alternate positions.
Would you mind just sharing, just so I know how many vacancies there are? We still have the...
Okay, so I have 1 on Board of Adjustments, 1 on Library, 2 on Planning and Zoning. That's just for those boards, so it's first set of boards.
What's the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee?
That is the Planning and Zoning Commission plus 1 individual that's in the ETJ and 1 individual that's in real estate.
The Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, is there any vacancies on that? Because that's for this...
Well, it won't be any, there is no vacancies because the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee is made up of the Planning and Zoning Commission plus 1 individual that lives in the ETJ and 1 other individual that's in real estate.
Okay.
So kind of yes, I guess, because I would say maybe there's 1 vacancy on capital improvements or 2 vacancies because, well, we have 2 alternates. Vacancies on planning and zoning, so.
Okay, building and standards, how many vacancies?
Building and standards has 1 vacancy.
Okay, economic development, EDC?
Economic development has, they have no vacancies, but they have 4 up for renewal.
Okay. Parks?
Parks has 6 up for renewal, no vacancies.
TERS?
TERS, there is no vacancies.
Okay.
And their terms are different because we put those in the March area, but there is no vacancies. Historical, there is 5.
5 vacancies.
Right. And a lot of that is because, you have to understand, some of these members have been on since the creation of this board way back Hal Baldwin days. So, some of these individuals, it's kind of time that they decided that, they've enjoyed being on it for this long, but, I'm not sure exactly what, some of them have moved, and then some of them just, said, I've served long enough, and it's, I guess, maybe time to retire off the board.
What's the total number of people on historical committee?
I think there's 14.
14 with 5 vacancies.
Yes,
okay, and then TSAC?
I don't believe there's, yes, we just had a vacancy on TSAC.
We just had 1.
Just got 1. I think, so there's 1 vacancy on TSAC, if I recall right. I think there's 3 up for renewal and 1 vacancy, because we just got that TSAC, I think it was Sullivan. It's going to be brought. Oh, Teasley, yes, yes.
Hensley. Mm-hmm.
Hensley. So we do have that vacancy because we just approved that tonight, her resignation, because she's moving out of Schertz.
Okay. So I would, again, back to the first point is that we have to do something because this first group of, everybody is expiring at the end of May. So we have to take some action. I think it makes sense to break it up into these 3 groups and extend everyone so we can kind of get our ducks in a row. I also agree that it sounds like the process, we're not on the same page as to how the process works. I don't think we agree on what the best process is, and I don't think it's as defined as it could be. So I wouldn't mind a workshop or the committee, the interview committee to get back together. One of the things is when we met as an interview committee, which was the first time I met on the committee as a member, I felt like in the group meeting, we thought we were all on the same page. So I think we all left that meeting thinking we were on the same page, but I think as we talk through the discussion, we realized how there's very specific details and one thing has to happen before the next thing happens, and it's almost like until you're in that moment, you're like, oh my God, we didn't think about how this affects that. So not to make it overly complicated, but I don't want to just let's keep going and plow through. I mean, maybe we need to do a little bit more thought process to think about how to make it a more effective process and get on the same page with it.
Councilmember Hayward.
Yes, Mayor, since we're not on the same page and the interview committee is not on the same page, maybe they need to have another meeting to do that. I move that we vote on item 1 and item 2, Exhibit A, that we change the dates to where they are so that we can get that moved. Then Exhibit B, subparagraph 1.
And 2?
And 2, as long as we strike
With
out.
the revisions that we made?
Yes.
And put item 2B back to the committee.
Yes.
For more input.
Item 1 is already what they do anyway, so I'm thinking the last one that's 2, that should be 3. I think the interview committee needs to go back and figure out if they can get on the same page and then bring it back to us, because it's the interview committee that actually decides who's going to be reappointed or appointed, and then they make those appointments and the suggestions to council, and council agrees. So when council agrees, we assume that they've done the interviews or the homework to figure out if these people need to be reappointed. So let's just pass those 2 things, and then we can kick the ball and move on and quit kicking this can down the road.
Can you repeat that?
Is that a motion?
It's a I make a motion.
Councilmember Hayward made a motion on ordinance 22M20 to approve Exhibit A, and under Exhibit B to pass number 1 and number 2 with some difference, with some revisions, say wishing to serve or fill a vacancy, and remove the reappointments.
So you ended after the word committee?
Yes, we ended at, after committee.
And I'll second that.
Okay. And council, do you want to continue having discussion on number 2B, or should we hold off until the committee is able to?
Let the committee come back with something.
Yeah, because I think we are going back and forth on this. Motion's been made by Councilmember Hayward on 22M20 with some revisions, second by Councilmember Scagliola. Council, any other comments?
Yeah, when the committee does sit down, I hope you ask subject matter experts to participate in the process as well. Some people know a lot more about the history of how the interview committee was established, and you get your insights from the chairs of the different boards and commissions as well, along with staff.
Okay. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Okay,
Thank you, council.
thank you. All right. We'll move on to roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide roll call confirmation on consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3, and discussion items 4 and 5.
Yes, consent agenda items 1 through 3. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes, no one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 5, ordinance number 22T21, first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes, no one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 4, ordinance number 22M20 with revisions to Exhibit B1 and B2, and then approving Exhibit A. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes, no one voted no. Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. Okay.
Council, I do have a question, if I may.
Yes.
So we do have these that are coming up for the count. do you want me to go ahead and schedule
Yes, since the...
set up for,
since the council has not changed the rules on reappointment, we will continue as planned until the council has passed the...
yes.
that section.
What I'll do is we'll set up, we'll do a spreadsheet of who's up for renewal, provide the interview committee with their application, and we'll also provide a schedule for new members that want to be interviewed. We'll get that set up and sent out and get some dates that are convenient for you.
I think it would be a great idea, like you said, send out those renewals, reappointments.
Yes. And absolutely include the chairs.
And if we can have the committee, interview committee meet with those applications at that time, maybe it will provide them some insight on the reappointments on how they will handle that.
So what you would like is go ahead and set up a meeting with the chairs of those applicants who have renewed, correct?
Yes, because we extended their expiration date till June 30th.
Yeah, we can do that.
So we can have the interview committee meet and see how they want to address these type of issues.
Yeah, we can
and I
do
think
that.
it'll give them some insight on that.
We can set up that, and then after y'all make that meeting, then we can schedule those that have applied for the vacancies. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you
yes,
very
I
much,
think that will work.
Thank you.
Okay. Requests and announcements. Dr. Brown, any further announcements?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay. Council, any possible updates or information requested from staff? Okay. Council, any possible items you'd like to place on a future agenda? All right. We'll move on. Now, announcements by council members. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, I went over to Silver Tree Nursing Home, read a proclamation over there, and they were really receptive. They had a big old sign that says, hey, welcome mayor and staff. Thanks to Ms. Brenda for coming over and providing some moral support to me. I really do appreciate it.
Okay. Councilmember Davis.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Well, I didn't attend anything in my official capacity for Mother's Day. I did take my youngest out to Crescent Bend Nature Park and enjoyed one of our lovely parks, and he just loves reading the little signs. I couldn't believe how engaged he was, and we found tons of wildlife. And so anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for Parks and Rec for doing a great job of keeping up with that park. Thanks.
Councilmember Dalla.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Hayward.
Yes, I attended the National Night Out over at Cibolo Y. It was a very nice event. I just wish more people would have come out for the National Day of Prayer. But overall, it was a good event and making good connection. It was great.
Okay. Councilmember Brown. Okay. The time is now 8:08. We stand adjourned.